Hi guys, my name is Megan and welcome back to the Monster Reads. Today we are talking all about werewolves and creatures. So we're going to dive right in with the first book, going to be the first book in the Encrypted series, Encrypted Armageddon. So I love these books. They follow our main character, Verity, and she is a cryptozoologist and she comes from a very long line of cryptozoologists. So cryptids are any, creature whose existence has yet to be proven, aka the Yeti, Bigfoot, those kinds of creatures like the boogeyman, that kind of stuff. Within this realm, all of those creatures are real. And Verity is making friendships with these creatures and she's studying them as well as, going about her daily life as a dancer in New York City, which is so much fun. I love the dragons that are in this, the mice that talk, the weird little creatures that you never even thought of, and especially I really like the boogeyman in this. There are just so many cool creatures in this. I could not name them all. This one is definitely one that I would recommend you check out if you're interested in an urban fantasy with lots of weird creatures that shouldn't exist but do. It's so good. So the next book that I'm going to recommend today is going to be Blood of the Earth. This is the first book in the Soulwood series, and the Soulwood series is actually a spin-off of the Jane Yellowrock series, which I absolutely love. So this one you get a lot of the same kinds of characters that we see in the Jane Yellowrock universe. Our main character Nell is some sort of weird forest creature. She doesn't know what she is because nobody ever told her and she thought she was human, but she's not. She also works for a division of Homeland Security for, supernatural creatures, and there's all sorts of were creatures. There's a couple of were cats that are on Nell's team and I love them to pieces. There's also a couple witches and some weird dragon shapeshifters. This book gets really weird, but I really love it to pieces. There's all sorts of really cool magic and really cool creatures in this universe. It's one that I would highly recommend. If you're looking for an urban fantasy, check this out. It's really good. It's dark, it's gritty. It's got kind of police procedural aspects to it. It's really good. So the next book that I'm going to recommend is going to be written in red. This is the first book in the Others series. In this universe, humans are not the top of the food chain. They don't, they're not in charge of where their cities are and that kind of stuff. The people who are in charge are these creatures. So there's werewolves, there's shapeshifters, there's elemental creatures, there's eldritch horror type creatures in this. And then we have our main character Meg, who is a blood prophet. So anytime she gets a cut or something and she bleeds, she can have a prophecy. And I thought this book was so interesting just because there's that danger element of humans not being in charge of things, and there's also a human uprising movement kind of going on in the background of this. It's really interesting, and I love that the creature characters the werewolves, the raven shifters, they're all really interesting and very you see them in a human light. There's also vampires in this, I should say, that are really interesting. You get to see them be humanized and you see them take on human characteristics, but you also get to see them caring for humans in their own way versus, it's probably not what humans would think of as caring and kind, but it's really interesting, and I love the kind of dichotomy that goes with this. Really interesting. So the next book that I'm going to recommend is one that's really interesting, and that would be God Save the Queen, and this is the first book in the Immortal Empire. So this is kind of a steampunk, Victorian-esque. It's really interesting. It's urban fantasy. So Queen Victoria never died, so she's still around. She's a vampire, still, kicking, and it's still very Victorian. So the aristocracy in Britain are all vampires and werewolves, and it's really interesting. And there's regular humans, but most of our main characters are either werewolves or vampires, or there's also goblins, which are kind of a hybrid of the two that are kind of shunned and they live underground, which is really interesting. And Xandra is our main character in this, and she is a royal guard, so it's kind of like a police force kind of. Xandra is a hybrid vampire werewolf, and she doesn't know that, and nobody else really does know that except for her mother and her sister who has gone missing. This universe is really interesting, and it throws a lot of light on Victorian era politics as well as classism and racism a little bit. It's really interesting, all with this really cool steampunk background. It's just so much fun. Alright, so this next book that I'm going to recommend is Wild Hunger. So this is the first book in the Heirs of Chicagoland, which is a spin-off of the Chicagoland vampire series. I know, vampires, but But there's also werewolves in this and like were creatures that I really loved, and I love seeing them in this. They're so interesting and I love like the take on them. One of the things about this book that I really love is that vampires are very like political. Well, the werewolves are political, but they're also kind of rough and tumble. They don't dress up. They wear leather biker jackets and jeans and t-shirts to formal events, and I love it. I love the werewolves in this, especially Connor. He's so interesting, and I also really loved Riley, who is such a sweetheart. I love these werewolf characters so much, and I really love the way that the vampires and the were-creatures and the werewolves specifically like mesh together, and you get to see all sorts of other creatures in here too, like fairies and nymphs, and it's just such a good world filled with so many different creatures, and it's just fantastic. And then the last book in today's monster reading recommendations is going to be Wolfsong. I could not do this werewolf section without this book. So this book is basically this pack of werewolves, and it's very heavily driven by a romance and like family drama, and all set across this tiny town in Oregon, and I love it to pieces. There's so many like werewolves, and almost nobody in this pack is straight, and I kind of like that. You get this like fuzzy feeling of like warmth and love, and it's definitely one of my favorite books that I've read this year, and it's got some really great werewolves, and there's like some really cool pack dynamics and family drama and family dynamics, and it's kind of like this found family, and it's just such a good book. Alright, so that is it for today's monster reading recommendation for werewolves and creatures. What is your favorite like creature? Let me know down below. I think mine would have to be a werewolf, or like were-creatures in general. They're really interesting. Let me know you guys' answers down below. If you guys like this video, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. You can also hit the notification button. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, check out the links down below. Alrighty, bye guys!